The LA Kings' perfect preseason is no more. They lose over the weekend. We've got some details on that. Who played in the game, who helped themselves, maybe didn't. As far as making the opening night roster, we had a player we haven't seen in a while return to the ice. We'll get into all that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com. And you'll win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. I'm also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly podcast and YouTube show that wraps up the night in the NHL once the season gets underway, which is only 8 days away. And I'm also a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Well, over the weekend, if you missed it, the Kings did play preseason game number 4 of 7. They played the Anaheim Ducks for a third time. There's one more still to go. This game played in Bakersfield, California. We'll give you a quick recap of what happened if you did miss it. Kings scoring an early first period goal. Cody Ceci, the defenseman, a rare goal from him to make it 1-0. Jacob Overar and Jared Wright had the assists. Ducks tie it up, but the Kings respond with a goal in the final minute of the period. Taylor Ward with the goal. Liam Greentree and Kyle Burrows with the assists. Second period, just one goal scored. That was by the Ducks. We were tied at 2-2. Third period, Trevor Moore scored in the early moments of that final third period, gave the Kings a 3-2 lead, but the Ducks would tie it up. And then with less than a minute to go, they got a power play opportunity and scored to take a 4-3 lead. They add an empty net goal and win the game by a score of 5-3. Now, some of these preseason games will give you detailed stats afterwards. Some of them don't. This one didn't have face-off stats or hit stats or block shot stats. Shots on goal did favor the Kings 40-29, and part of the reason for that was the number of power play opportunities for the Kings. They had 6, didn't score on any of them, while the Ducks went 2 for 4 with a man advantage, and that was basically the one thing that was very much in favor of the Ducks. The special teams got it done for Anaheim. So big takeaway from this game, and again, it's a preseason game. You know, the Kings were 3-0 in the preseason going into this, which is great, and they had some good things happening, but I'm certainly not in any kind of a panic over losing this game to the Ducks. It was a little disappointing and a little out of character that the Kings had a lead in the third period and didn't close it out, because we know their strength is defense. And then also, of course, the special teams. They allow the game-winning goal on a power play against. They don't score on 6 power play opportunities. So we'll get into that a little bit, some specifics of that, but that's pretty much the game in a nutshell. Again, it's not that big of a deal that they lost, but a little disappointing in kind of how it all played out. There were some interesting things to chew on, both from a team and individual standpoint. But real quick, I would be remiss if I didn't do a mini half-hearted rant on how spoiled we all are as sports fans. I know that I and probably every other Kings and Ducks fan in the world that was interested in actually watching this game were not able to do so for the entire first period. And I do appreciate the fact that the Kings do attempt to put all of their preseason games somewhere available for us. You know, I'm fine that it's typically not the most high quality there is. This is not a normal TV broadcast, so to speak. I'm certainly old enough to remember there were virtually no options when I was a kid as far as being able to watch pretty much anything you wanted to watch like it is now. And certainly technology being what it is has helped things out. But, you know, I think every team in the 4 major sports should make a very strong effort to make every game that they have, that they play, available to anyone who wants to watch it. And I get that technical issues happen, but I will just say it was pretty frustrating to not be able to watch the entire first period of this game. And once the game got going, the quality wasn't very good. The replays were not, they didn't provide much insight. And as you probably well know, hockey is a very fast-moving game, and sometimes you need those slow motion replays to figure out exactly what's going on. So there was some technical issues. The first period was not broadcast, and it was disappointing. It was disappointing. Again, I know technical issues happen, but like I said, for people, I think teams should try their best to make every opportunity possible to have their fans, especially their hardcore fans that will watch preseason games and care about, who makes the roster, those kind of things, that are invested in it that much that they do everything possible to give them the best possible broadcast. But I do have to point that out. That was a bit disappointing. So with that in mind, my recap and my analysis of the game and the players is also an analysis and a recap of the two periods that I saw. So I think I saw enough to be able to talk at least somewhat intelligently about it. So let's get into the team aspect of this game. And I think the biggest takeaway was the special teams for the Kings. Now, to be fair, the Kings did not have anyone from their top power play unit play in this game. And while we're at it, let's give you the lineup for this game for the Kings. And there were two people that I thought were kind of circled going into this. The top line was Philip Deneau centering Warren Foegele and Trevor Moore, the normal third line for the Kings. The second line was centered by Alex Laferriere, which he normally does not play. So that was very interesting. We'll get into that a little bit more. Liam Greentree and Joel Armia were his wingers. You had Samuel Helenius, Akil Thomas, and Andre Lee as the third line, three guys that are on the bubble to make the roster. Then you had kind of an AHL line of Francesco Pinelli, Taylor Ward, and Jared Wright. The defensive pairings were Brandt Clark and Joe Higgins. You had Kyle Burrows and Jakub Dvorak, Cody Ceci and Jacob Moverara, the third pair. And the goalies were Erik Portillo getting the start. We had not seen him on the ice since his back injury, so we're going to get into that. And Phoenix Copley would serve as the backup. A little bit interesting, Cody Ceci was listed as the third pairing defenseman in this one with Jacob Moverara, but I don't think there's too much to be read into that. But again, Alex Laferriere, Erik Portillo were kind of the two guys I circled when I saw this starting lineup. Now back to the power play for the Kings, which is 0-for-6. No one from the top power play unit played in this game. No Kuzmenko, no Kempe, no Kopitar, no Fiala, no Byfield. However, the Kings' number one power play unit in this game did have 4 of the 5 players that are going to make up the second power play unit, at least to start the season. Philip Deneau, Trevor Moore, Alex Laferriere, Brandt Clark. No Drew Doughty, who we think will be on that second pairing as well. Warren Foegele, though, is out there. So he's, Doughty is replaced by another NHL level player. So typically the number one power play unit for a team is the team that's the unit that's going to get the bulk of your power play goals. However, the Kings are not the most giftedly talented offensive team in the league, and they're going to need goals from everywhere they can get it. And the second power play unit needs to at least be a unit that makes the other team expend energy, killing off the power play when they're out there. So what I saw in this game from the Kings, almost 4 out of 5 players from the second power play unit, they got a lot of shots, but didn't get a lot of very quality scoring opportunities. So Brandt Clark running that second power play unit in this game. Not a lot from him, not a lot from the other guys that stood out. Again, in the second and third periods, I did not see the first period, but I would say that unit was a little bit of a disappointment. Did want to get into some of the individuals. And again, from what I could tell, Erik Portillo, the goaltender, didn't look very sharp. Didn't see the first goal he allowed, so I can't talk about the quality of that. But the other goals that he did allow, I thought his rebound control was a little dicey. So he didn't look quite as sharp as you would think. However, there may be actually a very, very good reason for that, because this was the first game action for Portillo since February the 17th, when he had a back injury that required surgery. So shouldn't be too surprised that Portillo maybe was a bit rusty in this game, maybe still working through some things. Certainly glad to see him not only as a full participant in training camp from this back issue, because we didn't know for sure if that was going to be the case, but to see him actually get a preseason start, I think is certainly encouraging that he'll be ready to go for the start of the season for the Ontario Reign. The Kings have used 4 goalies so far in 4 preseason games. 3 of them looked really good: Carter George, Anton Forsberg, Darcy Kemper. But Portillo, I think perhaps very understandably, did not look as sharp. 4 goals allowed on 29 shots. After the game, Portillo was asked by LAKingsInsider.com about coming back from his injury, getting the start. He said, quote, "The road was up and down the entire way, but it was slowly better and better, I think. But there were setbacks along the way, and that's just the way it is with these types of injuries. You don't really know the timeline. We were battling hard every single night to get the core stronger, to get it to heal, and all the things that go along that way. It's definitely been a long journey, not jersey, a long journey," end quote, from Erik Portillo. So again, Erik Portillo, the fact was, not very sharp, but I think to be fair to him, good to see him back on the ice. Good to see that it looks like the recovery from the back surgery is going pretty well. And hopefully he'll have a strong season in the AHL this year, will not have any issues with the back. And going forward, he can at least be a possible option for the Kings in net down the road, especially if they're in the next couple of years, if there's an injury to someone, maybe he can be an option as well. I do want to talk about Samuel Helenius as well. Some other things in this game from the preseason game over the weekend. We will do that next year on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. So we talked about Erik Portillo. There was one other player from an individual standpoint I wanted to get into a little bit more, and that was Samuel Helenius. He was the one who took a delay of game penalty in the final seconds that allowed the Ducks to get the power play and eventually score the game-winning goal. And that's kind of the way the preseason has been for Samuel Helenius. It just hasn't been, I think, the preseason that he's wanted or that the coaching staff has been looking for. I don't want to be too over the top on this, but if you were asking me who's kind of the biggest disappointment of this preseason and of training camp, I think I'd have to go with Samuel Helenius. Now, he's still young. He's only 22, and he got into the NHL sooner than anyone expected last year with a little bit of an extended look. And yeah, he still has a lot to learn. He's a big, strong kid. But I thought going into training camp, with the injury to Corey Perry, there was a real opportunity for him to be in the opening night starting lineup and to be on the opening night roster. Now, that may still end up happening as far as the roster goes. I think it's a long shot at this point to see him being in the starting lineup. And as it's kind of turned out, maybe it wouldn't even have mattered because Alex Turcotte and Jeff Malott have been so good so far this preseason. But it would have been nice to see Samuel Helenius make this a real competition, make this a tough decision for the coaches. I don't think it is right now. Now, that said, and I did get some feedback from Kings fans. I did dig into this myself as well. During our fan feedback show this past week, was talking about, the roster. And I noticed that Samuel Helenius is still playing on his entry-level contract. Typically, when you are playing on your entry-level contract, you are allowed to pass through waivers you could be sent down without going through waivers. However, I wasn't positive if that was the case for Samuel Helenius. Like I said, I've had some of you guys have reached out to me, and I read some articles as well. In fact, Samuel Helenius would have to clear waivers to be sent down to the AHL this coming season. So that's a pretty big factor in whether he will be on the opening night roster for the LA Kings or not. So we will keep that in mind. I would say it is likely that even though he hasn't maybe had as good of a preseason as some other players, like maybe an Akil Thomas, I think because of his size, because of his youth, that he's a guy who would be more likely to be claimed off waivers if the Kings sent him down. So I think by necessity, even though he hasn't looked all that great, in my opinion, and again, he hasn't been terrible, but not as good as you would have liked to seen him be. I think he still will make the opening night roster, but he will not be playing, I don't believe, on the opening night roster, barring any kind of an injury coming up here. So I do want to say, as far as from an individual standpoint, I thought one of the bright spots for the Kings in this loss to the Ducks was Trevor Moore. Had a really nice wrist shot, picking up a loose puck in the high slot and beating an NHL goaltender in Peter Mrazek that gave the Kings a 3-2 advantage. He also had a great pass from his own zone, hitting a streaking Warren Foegele down the ice for a breakaway chance. Foegele, unfortunately, didn't convert on it, but the pass was phenomenal. And I have said all along, I really think Trevor Moore is going to bounce back this season from his disappointing 19 goals a year ago. I like the way he finished last season. I think he's looked pretty good this preseason, had a great game over the weekend. I think he's highly motivated to get back to close to his 30-goal season from a couple of years ago. Also mentioned a little bit of a surprise to see Alex Laferriere at center on the third line in this game. He has not played center often in the NHL. As a matter of fact, even though they don't keep specific stats of where players play it positionally, just going by his game logs, it looks like he's played one NHL game at center out of 158. 2 years ago, I don't believe he played his rookie year. I don't think he played any games at center. Matter of fact, he took a total of 13 faceoffs the entire season, and he played pretty much the whole year. Now, last year, he did have one game late in the season where he took 21 faceoffs. So I'm pretty sure that's a good indication that he actually played center. It was against the Seattle Kraken in one of the last few games of the season. The Kings were, pretty much locked into a playoff spot. I don't remember the circumstances surrounding why he played center in that game. But interesting to see Alex Laferriere at center. And it does get you thinking and wondering, with Andrei Kopitar retiring at the end of the year, we're looking at Quentin Byfield moving into that number one center position. I don't see Philip Deneau moving from third line center to second line center. My guess is the Kings will need to go outside the organization to fill that slot. Maybe if they can't get the player that they want, maybe Alex Laferriere is kind of a fallback option to play that second line center position. It's certainly a bit of wishful thinking. But I will say in this game, and again, it wasn't going up against, the Edmonton Oilers in a regular season game. It was going up against a lot of, marginal players for the Anaheim Ducks. But I thought he did play well for what it's worth. He didn't look out of place. He looked fairly comfortable. So something to keep in mind, maybe, should the Kings ever need someone to play center, maybe Alex Laferriere is an option. I did want to mention Liam Greentree picked up his third assist of the preseason. I still don't think the way things are going, he's on the opening night roster. I don't think he gets that 9-game audition before being sent back to his junior team. But hey, nice to see him get a primary assist on the Kings opening goal. 3 assists in the preseason is certainly not bad, especially for a guy just getting his feet wet, playing against professional competition. Again, would love to see him in the AHL this year, but pretty sure Liam Greentree is going to be heading back to his junior team. Don't see him getting that 9-game audition. Unfortunately, this year, I don't think that's a major setback. I don't think it's a major concern of all, but it would have been kind of nice if he had a really strong camp and a really strong preseason to see him get that taste of the NHL. But I think the way Jeff Malott has played and the way, frankly, Liam Greentree hasn't, really wowed anyone. He's been fine, but he hasn't, been kind of, oh, we got to keep this guy up here. We got to give him a little time. We got to give him a taste. I see him going back to his junior team here in a little bit. I did want to mention one quick note on Joel Armia. He was playing on the second line with Liam Greentree and Alex Laferriere, and he had one moment in this game that was maybe kind of the highlight for the Kings, for me anyway, of the preseason. It didn't involve anybody scoring a goal, but the Kings were on a penalty kill, and Joel Armia was in the neutral zone. He flipped the puck into the Ducks' end, and then he decided to go after it. and he ended up getting to the puck. He then skated the puck out of the Ducks zone into the neutralized area, passed it back into the Kings end to one of his teammates to kill, like 12 seconds off the clock, all on his own, skating through Ducks defenders and making him look like it was like an adult playing keep away with some kids. So we haven't seen a ton of things from Joel Armia this preseason, and he's not going to be a super flashy guy. But I just thought that effort, just kind of the smarts of what he was doing, was pretty impressive. That was a play that I thought probably was the most standout kind of a play for the Kings so far this preseason. Want to get into a couple of more individuals from this preseason game. Also want to get into what's going on with the Kings as far as training camp battles, what the rosters look like, how things are progressing. We'll do that next year on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you want to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday or your Monday or your Thursday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. I did want to mention one other individual from that game down in Bakersfield against the Ducks. Cody Ceci scored a goal. And while I didn't see it, certainly nice to see a player like him contributing. However, we should get used to hearing other players' names as far as goal scorers. He's not a goal scorer. Cody Ceci had 4 total goals last season. That's right around his career average. It might be a fun competition between CC and Mikey Anderson and Brian Dumoulin and Joel Edmondson to see who leads the defensive defenseman in goal scoring this year. Dumoulin had just 3 last year. Mikey Anderson and Joel Edmondson each had 6 last year. So it would be very surprising if anybody even approaches double digits, but we'll see. We'll take offense from any place we can get it. As far as in their careers of those guys, only Cody Ceci has actually had a double-digit goal-scoring year. He did that with the Ottawa Senators back in the 2015-16 season when he scored exactly 10 goals. So don't expect to see Ceci and Dumoulin and Anderson and Edmondson on the score sheet too often as far as goals scored. So if we do get one from those guys, consider that definitely an added bonus where you don't normally see it. All right, so talking about the Kings roster for the start of the year, we're now 8 days away from the Kings taking on the Colorado Avalanche on opening night, Crypto.com Arena, October 7th. Kings need to finalize their 23-man roster 1 day before October 7th. So literally a week from today, as we're recording this on Monday, they will have to have their 23-man roster set. Now, if you haven't been following what's been going on in training camp, the 2 groups of players have been split up basically into 2 larger groups, and then there's one kind of smaller group. But realistically, one group is the group of Kings players, and one group is the group of Reign players, for the most part. So the Kings Group A has 14 forwards practicing together. Kopitar, Kempe, Kuzmenko, Byfield, Fiala, Laferriere, Danault, Fogle, Moore, Turcotte, Armia, Malat, Akil Thomas, Samuel Helenius are the forwards. 8 defensemen, exactly who to expect: Drew Doughty, Mikey Anderson, Brant Clark, Brian Dumoulin, Joel Edmondson, Cody Ceci, Jacob Moverare, and Kyle Burrows. And Group A has the 2 goalies that will be the 2 goalies to start the season, barring any injury: Darcy Kemper and Anton Forsberg. So that's 24 players. Again, the Kings have a 23-man roster to open the season. Corey Perry, of course, not being counted because he will be on injured reserve. So obviously one of the players that we mentioned has to go down to the Ontario Reign and the AHL. Now, we've mentioned it before, but if the Kings keep 2 extra defensemen, then Jacob Moverare and Kyle Burrows are both on the team. I think that's what they're going to do, but we'll see. That means either Akil Thomas or Samuel Helenius will have to be sent down. As I mentioned, because of Helenius' age, because of his size, he's much more of an attractive target for other teams to claim off waivers. Akil Thomas is not. I think it's 99% Akil Thomas is going to be the one who gets sent down to the AHL. I would be surprised if anyone claims him, frankly, but we'll see. If the Kings decide to keep 2 forwards, I don't think they're going to do that, but if they do, then obviously Thomas and Helenius will start the year with the Kings, and one of the defensemen will have to get sent down. I think that would be Kyle Burroughs. I think Jacob Moverar is a more attractive player for potentially being picked off waivers. He's younger, he's bigger. So if the Kings decide to keep 2 forwards and only 1 defenseman, I would expect Kyle Burroughs to get sent down, barring any injuries, of course. So I believe the Kings opening night roster will have Samuel Helenius, Jacob Moverar, and Kyle Burroughs, with Akil Thomas being sent down. We shall see. That's what it looks like to me. As for Group B, you've got 13 forwards, mostly made up of players that are going to be in the AHL this year. Liam Greentree being the one notable exception, but he is practicing with Group B. I think that also gives us a decent indication that he's not going to be on the NHL roster to start the season. And you've got guys like Kenny Connors, Martin Kromiak, Taylor Ward, Jared Wright, Francesco Pinelli, Otto Yemsen, Caleb Lawrence, Cohen Zemer, Glenn Godden, Cole Gutman, and Logan Brown are the forwards. You've got 8 defensemen: Kirill Kirsanov, Odo Celine, Jakub Dvorak, Samuel Bolduc, Joe Hicketts, Parker Berge, Tim Rigo, and Jack Miller. And you've got 3 goalies: Erik Portillo, Phoenix Copley, and Isaiah Seville. There are a few other names that are not practicing with Group B, guys whose names you might be familiar with: Jack Hughes, Jacob Doty, a guy who looked really good in the rookie faceoff, born in Japan, Kenta Isogai. And then there's another player, big tall player, John Parker Jones, that you may have noticed if you've gone out to any of the practices or any of the other games, the rookie games. So those guys are in an extra little group. They could be with the Ontario Reign this year, maybe even with the ECHL's Greenville Swamp Rabbits. That's the Kings affiliate in ECHL. So that's the way training camp is looking now. As far as how the groups are practicing, it's getting more and more condensed. At some point here, both teams will be kind of there. I mean, they're already split up, but it'll be an official kind of naming of this is Kings camp, this is Reign camp, and they'll kind of go their separate ways if they kind of haven't already, to be really honest. But that's how things sit right now as it goes for Kings training camp. So the Kings have 3 more preseason games before opening up the season next Tuesday. They have a game this Tuesday against the Utah Mammoth. 6 p.m., I believe, is the start time, Pacific time. I think that game's in Boise, Idaho. And then Thursday, they play the Mammoth again, and I think this is the Salt Lake City game, I'm pretty sure. And then, of course, the final game, Saturday, 1 p.m., Crypto.com Arena, Kings and Ducks for a 4th time this season. Interesting that all 4 games have been in different locations. As far as how it's going to work, my guess would be this next game coming up might not feature the Kings full lineup, but one or both of those final 2 preseason games, Thursday or Saturday, we will see the Kings opening night roster played together for one game, just to give them, that group, one kind of game action to get ready for the season. If you're curious, no new news to report on the Adrian Kempe contract talks. Also haven't heard anything about a release date for the Kings' 3rd jersey, which is coming out sometime this season. I would think they'd want to do it before opening night because all the excitement of the new season, people and goofballs like me that love jerseys are want to spend their money because they're so excited about new things and new season and all that kind of stuff. So I would expect that to be in the next week, that something's going to come out about that, but have not heard about it as of the recording of this show. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen to watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up, we are going to have a special interview with the LA Kings' new radio host for their audio broadcast this year. He'll be the man hosting Kings Talk. His name is Sam Batesh, and he'll be joining us in our next show or thereabouts. Also, we'll have recaps of both of the preseason games this week against Utah. And of course, at the end of the week, our fan feedback show. Anything that's on your mind about what's going on with the LA Kings. The email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, we welcome your comments in the comment section. Stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're at Locked On LA Kings. If you'd like some extra Kings content, we have some fun chats, exclusive content as well. Send an email to lakingsextra@gmail.com. And if you're just a fan of the show, we would appreciate you spreading the word about the show. Tell your Kings friends, tell your Kings coworkers about the podcast and the YouTube show in case they maybe are not aware of it. We would appreciate that. And we being me. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.